Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode. I'm super excited about tonight's episode because we are talking about culture. So, here's what I want to state in the beginning as kind of like a sizzle statement. What you allow, model, and reinforce every day is your culture. In this episode, I'm catching up with school leadership expert and systems strategist Michael Meechin to explore how consistency builds the trust, clarity, and alignment needed for a strong school culture, from daily expectations to leadership modeling. We're going to be talking about what it takes to lead a team that doesn't just know the vision, but lives it. So if you're trying to build momentum, reset expectations, or lead with clarity, this episode is going to be for you. So let's get ready to tune in. Hey there, welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show. If you are tired of chasing buy-in, frustrated by teams who just can't seem to get on the same page, or over the constant struggle of holding people accountable without feeling like you're micromanaging, this is the show for you. I'm Casey Watts, team leadership expert and the host of this show. I specialize in clarity, collaboration, and character, and I help leaders just like you take teams from chaos to cohesion, from frustration to alignment, so teams can actually work together toward a common purpose instead of against each other as though they are functioning in different organizations. Whether you lead a single team or a team of teams, on this show, we talk about strategies that are going to help you create a culture where accountability and autonomy go hand in hand. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's conversation and learn how to lead clarity-driven teams. Hey, Michael Meechin, how's it going?
Casey, it is going really well. I'm super excited to be here with you tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a great conversation. I know this is a super hot topic for a lot of people because culture is one of those things that I feel like is sometimes so broad and so high level that it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is or how we achieve a really strong culture. So this is going to be super great. So as we get started tonight, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, so I'm a former school principal and everything else, Casey, right? Like started as a classroom teacher and played kind of all the roles in the leadership pipeline on my way up to the principal's seat. And then 2 years ago, took a leap and went into the nonprofit world. And I currently work for an organization called the National Center on Education and the Economy. And we support really leadership development, executive leadership development for school districts across the country, work with developing principals all the way on up to superintendents, and work with school boards to really make sure like systems are aligned and that the things that they want to do, that they have systems that support that work. We think it's really important. So it was great alignment for me because that's my DNA. It's what I love.
Yeah.
It was great. So that's what I do now. But I really just enjoy everything about the education space. I think public education in particular is incredibly important. I know the work that our folks in school buildings are doing on a daily basis is the hardest work in the world. It's the most rewarding, but it is difficult. And I want to help support any way I can.
That's awesome. So before we get started in talking about our topic tonight, I think it's important for our audience to get to know you on a pretty deep level. So share something that's just like makes you not superhuman, that, like not like Superman, but just super normal human. What are your habits, superstitions, things that you do with friends, hobbies, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a dad a lot. I oftentimes find myself. I have two middle schoolers, so I oftentimes find myself either on the soccer field or at the cheerleading gym. that's really where I consume most of my waking hours right now in this life.
Mhm.
My wife and I both, right? Like we have to tag team. It's the nature of the beast right now. So that's what I do, but I'm loving every minute of it because I get to see it through a very different lens. And it's been, that part's been really cool. I spent most of my time as a school leader in secondary. So I've really enjoyed kind of as my kids have come up through K-5, like learning that world, because it's a very different space, and props to all my elementary people out there. But yeah, no, it's just
Yeah,
I'm dadding it, right? Like whether it's dad
yeah,
Uber or dad's fan club at the, like, it's what I do, right?
right.
It's the way of the work in this phase of life right now.
Yeah. Do you find that dad jokes are just kind of naturally coming out of you now?
Yeah, I'm at that age. Like, there's like a ton of memes, right, that are like on Facebook now. And of course, there's those commercials where like you turn into your parents, and I'm like, I
Yeah,
laugh and then I like deeply reflect on, oh man, like that's me. And
yeah,
it is what it is, right? It's just, I guess it's the full circle. That's the circle of life that I think they were talking about in The Lion King. Like
yeah.
really, that's what they were talking about.
That's
Are those
truly,
full
truly what
circle
it is.
moments? Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. The other day, I think I posted I found myself taking a picture of this bird in a tree that's right outside my office. And I posted on Instagram and I was like, how I think there's a point when you're in your life where you just all of a sudden are aware of birds.
Yep.
And I'm more in awe of them now for some reason.
Yeah, and I'm gonna I'm gonna take it next level. I'm gonna blow your mind here, but there's an app where you can actually like let it use your microphone, and based on the sound of the bird, tell you what it is. Why do we know these things, Casey? Like this is where we are,
Yeah.
but and we have to be okay with it.
Oh, I'm totally okay with it. I love seeing the birds. There's a hawk in our neighborhood. I
Yep.
see it all the time and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's a hawk." And my kids are like, "Okay, we saw it yesterday. Like, no big deal." Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk about the topic at hand, which is going to be really exciting. And I want to know, you chose this topic, right? And what is it about culture that really strikes a chord in you that made you say, "Yeah, this is what we need to talk about on this podcast episode"?
Yeah, I think that in my work, in my experience, Casey, I've seen so many school leaders. Um, in my life as a school leader, I often found myself in some relatively tough environments, turnaround situations, and that type of learning environments. And I see so many school leaders become really frustrated with trying to move the work forward, right? The school improvement piece, but they're not focusing on culture. They take no time to really take a deep dive into culture. And what I've learned over time is you're not going to move anything if you don't have your culture straight within your school. Period. You might fluctuate on test scores, and props to you, but there's no long term sustainability. And your kids and teachers, they're probably not having a good time doing it. So I think the culture conversation is so important to our work as school leaders. So that's really been my soapbox. Um, and the hill that I will absolutely die on is fighting for strong school cultures um, in our schools.
Yeah. So then let's talk about the difference between climate and culture. Why does consistency matter so much? Really for both, but talk about that difference first.
Yeah, so I think to understand why consistency matters, let's define them a little bit, right? So and I've been on the receiving end of professional development where I've heard a million different people, facilitators define climate and culture. So here I am. I'm going to define it for you, but this is I try to keep it as simple as I possibly can, right? Like the climate is what it feels like to be in your building today. Okay. Um, it's the moods, it's the tone, maybe the emotional temperature in the building. Okay. But your culture is what it feels like every single day. It is the deeply embedded systems and habits and beliefs that are built over time. You can't build a culture over time, and the climate will ebb and flow a lot more. It is the temperature of the school. The challenge with that is it allows some schools to fake it, and climate can get you in trouble because you can think you have a strong culture when you really just have a hot climate at the moment. Maybe you're having a great week, things like that, right? So that's how I kind of draw the difference between the two. The climate is what's happening today, but the culture is what's going on every day when you're not in the building. What's happening? That is your culture, and those things are built over time and are deeply embedded. You know, consistency is the bedrock of which culture is built upon. Which is why I was excited to talk to you, and we got to connecting. We've followed each other on social media for a long time, but I was able to sit and really learn more about the ideas that you bring to the table around clarity. And clarity and consistency are incredibly important, right? Those are the things that build trust, safety, for you to be able to launch your school culture work. And I think that's essential. So I think that's how that's how they're different from one another. But I think the consistency piece is what you'll build upon.
Yeah. And I love that you are taking time to kind of define those things. I think we often struggle to, follow through with some of the things that we want to follow through with,
Yep.
like building a culture of consistency, and building a climate where your culture can thrive, or a culture where your climate can thrive. But part of that is because we're not taking time to develop common definitions for things. So, my definition for climate and culture may be completely different than someone else's
Right.
definition. And then there are so many people who have just heard the terms time and time and
Yep.
time again, but there are no definitions, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that absolutely can create gaps between what leaders say they value versus what actually shows up in the day-to-day practice, which kind of brings me to what I want to talk about next. What are some of the gaps you see that cause what we talk about not to show up in our organization?
Yeah, I think what I see most is when folks are saying something and doing something completely different. I am in my role now, and even in my previous life, I visited a lot of schools. I walk a lot of campuses. I'm in a lot of classrooms. I've walked a lot of hallways. I've been in a lot of main offices, and it's things like saying relationships matter, but never leaving your office. It is telling me that you value high impact teaching and learning, but never enter classrooms. Those are the types of things that are a challenge. And look, it kind of hits on the first question we talked about. I get it. And I tell school leaders this all the time. I understand. I have been under those pressures. Like, people want schools, especially in turnaround schools, they want things to move real quick. That's not the nature of the beast. Sometimes you have to, if I mean, you're the captain of the ship, you have to slow it down. You have to complete 180, and then you have to build momentum again. And that is not A, it's not easy. B, it takes time, but you have to value the right things. You can't go chasing proficiency scores. That's not going to do wonders for your school culture. You build an incredible culture, part of which is incredible teaching and learning experiences for students, an incredible workplace environment for teachers. Then you get the proficiencies that you're looking for. Those things are directly connected. So I oftentimes will see people who are saying one thing and doing something completely different.
Yeah, I think if we were to take a look at even our to-do lists, your to-do list, if you analyzed it, is a great reflection of what it is you prioritize and value.
Yep.
Uh, and so that would be interesting, I think, to see, if you did analyze that, what would you notice would be the differences between someone who truly values culture and building a positive, impactful culture versus someone who maybe hasn't quite hit the nail on the head? So we talked a little bit about consistency earlier, and you've led turnaround schools and high performing schools.
Yep.
How did consistency play a role in each of those places?
Yeah. So in my turnaround experiences, I think consistency is really important because that's what helps build stability. And a lot of times when we walk into schools that are in a turnaround status, and it doesn't matter what state you're in or what community you're in or what they call it, but those schools that need a little extra TLC, if you will, stability is so important. My first principalship, Casey, I was the sixth principal in 10 years. So how do of course everybody's looking at me like, when are you going to be gone? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I get it. Like, that's totally understand. I was thinking it like that's what the culture was about. And I think that we had to work really intentionally at using consistency to help build stability. We actually, and I think this can benefit school leaders. And I talk and write about this a lot. You can do so much more with less. Like taking a step back and looking at
Mm-hmm.
the things that you're doing and saying, like, what's not working? Stop doing it like
Right.
tomorrow. And those are the things that help build stability and being consistent with those things. So that's how I've seen it play out in my turnaround work in high performing schools. I really think consistency plays a really important part in maintaining momentum and just providing clarity on like where it is we're going. Like if I build strategic goals or KPIs, whatever you want to call them, um, building clarity around what those things are and how we're going to get there and building that momentum, those consistency things. We're going to keep working at this until we get it. Because sometimes, incremental changes is tougher sometimes at high performing schools. So that's where I've seen kind of clarity in how it plays out in both settings.
Yeah, I heard somebody today, a friend of mine was talking about and I think I told you about this when we last visited, but I've been reading this 10x is easier than 2x book.
Yeah.
And she talked about, what did she call it? WAG goals. So wild and audacious goals.
Yeah.
And I think there's a place for that in schools, both in turnaround and in high performing schools. But that's kind of what you're talking about, kind of reminds me of that, is even when we do have whatever goals we have, even if they're minimal or wildly audacious, people have to have clarity about where they're headed, why they're going there, and how they're going to get there.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, one of the things that I did that kind of like lends itself to this wild, audacious mindset, right? Is there's a book, it's a kid's book called What Do You Do with an Idea? And I bought every staff member and every year forward, anybody who was onboarded onto our staff, they got a copy of the book, and I would sign it and put a little note inside. But that's what it's about. Like we have to believe, Hattie's research is evidently clear. Like collective efficacy. Like if you don't believe in the work that you're engaging in, you're not going to achieve it. Period. The research is clear on that. We can do anything if we build clarity and consistency around those things, right? Like it can't be overstated. Like that's why I jumped at the opportunity to come talk to you about. Like we cannot overstate this enough. If you're a school leader, these are the steps that you have to take to be able to see the momentum start to swing your way.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like we could have an episode just about that, probably. But it does kind of make me wonder. Earlier we were talking about. You're talking about all of the things that are on a principal's plate or on a leader's
Yeah.
plate, even if you're not a campus principal, maybe you're leading a department, but there are so many things on your plate. There are so many things to prioritize. When you are trying to build a positive, high performing culture where people enjoy going to work, there have to be some systems that you
Yep.
put in place. So I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about systems that help schools ensure those expectations are followed. Um, so there's consistency across.
Yeah, so again, I'll come back to the point. We had to make it simple. Our teachers were working on far too many things, and I see this a lot in schools really deeply engaged in school improvement work. They're doing a million things, and they're doing none of them well. And so what we did was we really took a gigantic leap backward and said, what's important to us? What do we value? We did that collectively as a staff, and we also talked about the things that we didn't want to happen anymore. What were we not okay with? How are we going to make it about teaching and learning? Over half of my kids were reading below grade level in ninth grade in the school that I led. So reading and in getting kids writing were incredibly important strategies. So our teaching and learning efforts wrapped around that. But then we extended that, right? Like my instructional coaches, they were going to support on those two things. And it didn't matter if you were in science class or you were in PE, you were going to read and you were going to write. And then our leadership team, we were going to support that and provide you with feedback on how we can improve instructional practice focused on reading and writing. And we keep it simple. Of course, we want to build upon that. But when you're in the beginning phases of really building and staying consistent in your message, you can't do a million things. That's what breaks school culture really quickly. So for me, it was taking a step back, really looking at what we valued and figuring out how we did it. We did this. I believe there's three big things all school leaders need to focus on. It's teaching and learning, it's attendance, and it's behaviors in your building. Okay. Behaviors, attendance, and teaching and learning are all student and adult behaviors. So you have to have systems to address both the student and the adult behaviors in your building. We had to, and to be honest with you, this sounds like crazy, right? Like we had to write it down. We had to memorialize it and say, these are the things we're going to work on. This is our goal. This is our metric. These are the strategies we're going to take to get here. And here's when we're going to follow up. But that's how you build systems, and you stick with those things. It requires the school that I led for a very long time. We had a lot of deficiencies. We had a lot of things that we needed to change. Those things did not happen overnight. I was there for 6 years. So we had to really get clear on what those things were, and we had to roll up our sleeves and get after it.
Yeah, you are perfectly describing the clarity cycle framework from my book. And everything that you have said, I mean, you've given me some ideas actually, just kind of thinking about systemizing things, which is what I would say that the clarity cycle framework allows you to do, is to make this complexity of clarity much more simplistic and create systems behind what it is you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. But it's so incredibly powerful what you have said. There's a book called De-Implementation by Peter DeWitt. Have you read it? It's fantastic. No, but a lot of what you're talking about, he describes in his book as pulling away from some of the things that are taking up so much of your time and energy so you can focus on what really matters and improve your culture and improve the work environment, and also, of course, improve your impact on student learning. So yeah, I just love everything that you just said. How do you, though, balance consistency with autonomy so leaders and teachers don't feel micromanaged, which I feel like is the hardest thing and what leaders want to pull away from? They don't want to feel as though they're micromanaging, but at the same time, they want to hold people accountable.
Yeah, I actually don't think that is as difficult as we sometimes make it in education. We're really good at getting in our own way in the education space. But here's how I kind of simplify that. We want to have clarity and consistency in like what we want and expect. I allow flexibility in how you do that. I would always tell my teachers, we're going to teach to this set of standards. We're going to teach to this depth of knowledge. We're clear on that. Like there's no way around that. Our kids
Right.
deserve that.
Yep.
But how you do that, I hired you because I like your personality and maybe delivering biology. I want you to bring that into your classroom. How you do that, that's where the autonomy comes in. And that's where we lack. Like people are leaving the profession because they're being micromanaged from every direction possible. That's not what it's about. Like, I want you to be uniquely you in my building. That's what I want from you. And that's where the autonomy works. But I'm going to build a framework for you to operate within. And I have found that actually contributes to positive school culture. Most people want to know what do you want me to do? How do you want me to operate? But I'm not going to get down into the nitty gritty and tell you how to deliver that content. And I would hire people from time to time that had clearly come from school cultures that were like that. And I'm like, y'all, this is not what you're signing up for here. Like, I want you to bring yourself into the space and deliver high impact teaching and learning. But we're going to be clear that that's what's going to happen in every classroom every day.
Yes. Preach. Oh my gosh. This is so great. And I'm almost like reeling, like I have too much to say about what you just said that my mind is almost like blank because I can't attach myself to any one of the things specifically, but it's also good. So what we're going to have to do is just do another episode on that in and of itself.
that works. I have those moments like daily in my life, you know? It just, I can't, that's why I have to write. And we talked about this before, right? When we chatted offline, but I have to write and I have to publish content.
Yeah.
I have to get it off my chest. So
yes,
I just need to say it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, one thing that you did say that struck a chord in me is just thinking about giving people a framework. There is a phrase that I lean into all of the time, that there is freedom in structure. There is freedom in structure, because without 100%. That, we lack clarity. And that's when we start to lose confidence, because we don't have a structure within which we can work. It's kind of like having a super messy bedroom. I know that I can't function super well in a messy environment. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out, where do I even start to clean all of this up? But if someone comes in and says, listen, here's what your bedroom needs to look like, and here are the ways that you can go about starting to do that. Here's what the end goal is. Have at it. Then I'm like, all right, I know what we're going for here. I know where I can start. I know the boundaries from within which I can work.
Casey, I have that conversation with school leaders all the time. You can ask any of my assistant principals or my deans that have worked for me. They will come and they will say like everybody, so many kids are tardy today. And I'm like, well, we have a goal for this, right? Like we've already built this out in our strategic plan.
Yeah.
You know what we want our metrics to be. So what are you going to do about it? That's why I hired you. Go get crazy. Let's get kids to school receiving high impact teaching and learning. Like figure it out. Like that's what I saw in you when I brought you on board. You're part of the team. Get after it, you know? And that's what I love. I love the idea. There is freedom in structure. 100%.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, we are solving the same problems again and again and again and again.
Over and over again. Yep.
Yeah.
I say this too many times. If any of my assistant principals are watching, they're gonna have some flashback moments. But I would tell them all the time, if you continue to get asked the same question by staff, one of two things has happened. Either you don't have a system for it, or your system is broken. There's no clarity there. And it's always one of those two things. It never fails. So you either need to build a system for it, but what blows my mind, Casey, is the amount of people, school leaders, even, and this extends its way down to the classroom, right? There's so many, it can be applied but so many people don't do anything about it. They just continue to put out the same fires over and over again. That is the definition of insanity. Like, you do
Mhm.
not, that is what will drive you to leave the profession.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to, like, shout from the rooftops. You have to start implementing some of those pieces, because you will drive yourself crazy.
Yeah. And I think a huge piece of that is being able to be a reflective leader
Yep.
who has a great sense of self-awareness, a great sense of social awareness, but also a great uh, ability to self-manage.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree 100%.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about this. Is a fun question. What are some red flags that show a school culture may be suffering from inconsistency?
Yeah. One that I would often look for is when my best teachers go quiet. I needed to I needed to put an ear to the wall. And
Mhm.
that was a red flag, because I'm a relationship builder. I've always worked really hard at that in the leadership role. And I have some people that would come in and close the door and tell me, like, just lay it out there, because and I value that so much, because the transparency piece is so essential in moving our work forward. It's not about being, it's not taking it personal. It's just like, if we don't know what the problems are and we're not willing to talk about it, we can't move the school forward. Period. So when those people start to go quiet in your building, there's some red flags for sure that you need to look. Um, I think it's also when when you start to hear, like, it depends on who's watching. Like, like, are we are we being monitored, or do we have to turn this in? Um, there's probably not a lot of purpose behind some of the things that you're implementing, and that's why they're not being done, consistently. And then I think there's always looking for kind of dramatic shifts in behaviors, or expectations among staff or students, for that matter. I think those are some red flags that you really need to be attentive to, in your work as a leader.
Yeah, I think you mentioned one earlier too, and that's when you keep getting the same questions again and again.
Over and over again. Yeah,
Yeah,
you have some work to do in terms of building
right.
systems, for sure.
Yeah. I also, one of the things that pops into my mind is the way that people collaborate. So, if you, in my line of work, when I'm working with schools, oftentimes one of the things that we're trying to move past is that faux collaboration, which is to say
Yep.
fake collaboration, because we have the idea that, if our teams get along really well, or, everybody is bringing resources, we have tons and tons of resources, but we don't know how anybody's using any of that, or we still don't know what our structures and frameworks are for good instruction. Like, if we
Right.
have the idea that a great team is someone who is a team of people who get along and they just share resources, then that to me also is an indicator that maybe we're lacking some consistency in our school culture. And there are some things that need to be addressed there.
Yeah, I'm the anti-compliance guy. I am not here to check boxes, and that is something that I have provided great clarity on over my career. That is not what it's about, and
Mhm.
if you do that, you will find your way. You won't last long in the profession. It just You certainly are not going to build a positive school culture if you're just there to check some boxes.
Yep.
That's not what it's about. And I think there's a much deeper conversation to be had, Casey. But we in this country look at whether it's NAEP scores, and we look at comparisons to other countries and jurisdictions around the world, and those are some of the things that we're not doing. We are so focused on checking boxes and being compliant, without putting the student and teacher front and center. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's about. And until we start doing that and making some really seismic systemic changes to
Yeah.
put teachers and students first, we're not, as a collective, going to see the impact. We're going to have pockets of great things happening throughout the country, but that's where it's at. If you're just there to check boxes, you might as well, pack it up.
Yeah. Throw in the towel.
Yep.
Move on.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is, as we start to wrap up tonight, what's one action school leaders can take this week to reinforce a culture of consistency?
Yeah, one that I like to share is just go and take a pulse check. And you can do that in a variety of different ways, right? Like go watch what's happening in the hallways during transition. Go sit with your teachers at lunch and just just hang out, just listen. Go observe what happens in the front office, as parents come in or your staff fields phone calls. Um, Drop in on a parent teacher conference. Like, take a pulse check. I mean, you could, even if you wanted to, like, put out a 3 to 5 question survey to say, like, where are you at? Like, where's your mental space right now? What's one thing you need me to start doing tomorrow? And what's one thing you need me to stop doing tomorrow? Like, those are real simple ways to start to turn the tide and be able to right the ship and provide some stability. So those pulse checks are really easy, and you should have your finger, on the pulse of your school on the regular. Like, that's something you
Yeah.
should do at minimum quarterly, if not more often. But people will value that.
Yeah. And you may find, I just want to add that in the beginning, if you're new to doing something like that, and your staff is not accustomed to that, it may take them some time to provide some authentic, vulnerable feedback. And that's okay. Just keep doing it. And then they will understand over time if your actions match your words
100%.
and your intentions, then you're going to see a shift in that culture.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the
Yeah.
essential piece there, which you hit, is that if you say you're going to do something, you need to do it.
Yeah.
Don't if
Mhm.
you know if you do a pulse check at your school and never do anything about it, you're going to be right back to square one. So it's making sure that
Yeah.
you're taking action on those things that you outline. So yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me in a couple different places. You can follow me at Mike the Principal. I'm on Instagram. I produce a lot of content, a lot of reels for just quick tips for school leaders to be thinking about, as they lead the work. I think if you really want to find some depth in the things I have to say, I write a weekly email newsletter called the Progress Report, and you can find that if you connect with any of my socials. You'll find the links to that really easy to find. But I publish just kind of some real easy, actionable school culture steps that you can take and make impact tomorrow in your school. In fact, tomorrow's I usually drop them on Tuesdays. Tomorrow is about push pull and how hard to push and when to pull back. So it kind
Nice.
of relates a little bit to our conversation today.
I love it. That's awesome. And so also we have met before this episode, and I am just certain that we're probably going to be doing another episode in the future together. So you guys just need to be on the lookout for other episodes that we're going to do in the future. Now, what would you hope, Mike, that they take away from tonight's conversation?
Yeah, I hope that I really hope that that something that we said resonated with you, and it's something that you can go into the school building tomorrow and start to take action on.
Yeah.
We oftentimes wait to adjust and change course in education. We'll wait for the next school year. I can assure you, whether you're in a high performing school or a turnaround situation, the work is urgent. There is no time to waste. Do not waste time and do not wait to change course. Like, you can put things into play, small things, baby steps, but you can start that work tomorrow. And I hope that somebody who listened tonight will take that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up. Just know that all of the things that Michael mentioned in this episode, you can find that in the show notes. If you are catching this on Apple Podcasts, you'll see it in the show notes. If you're watching it on Spotify or listening on Spotify, you'll see it in the show notes. If you're on YouTube right now or LinkedIn, go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and catch the show notes there. And then be sure to leave a review for the show, because that's how I get other people to listen who need to listen. Okay, this has been a great episode, guys. We will catch you next time. Bye, Mike.
Thanks, Casey.
Hey there. Thanks for joining this episode. I would love for you to do me 3 solid favors before you head out. Number 1, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great guests and content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Number 2, share this show. Share it with your like-minded colleagues and friends who want to learn how to lead clarity-driven teams. And finally, connect with me on all the social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with Casey on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Until next time, go off and create teams that leave people feeling inspired, empowered, and eager for more each day.